Big thanks for joining me once again on this morning on ITV. And I did say we're going to be looking at a very sensitive topic on deepening electoral integrity in Nigeria, the role of the judiciary. Well, by that taste, it's important that we have a seasoned legal practitioner to look at issues that could be emanating basically from the angle of the judiciary. And that's where I have at my extreme left a seasoned legal practitioner, a human rights activist, a constitutional lawyer, Alakwe Mbanefo. Thanks for coming, Mr.
Thank you
Alakwe.
very much.
And next to the seasoned legal practitioner is another seasoned political scientist who knows his onions, a lecturer, University of Benin Political Science Department, Neville Obakedo. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me, ITV. Good morning, viewers and listeners at home.
When we talk about electoral integrity, we can't take away the judiciary from it. We can't take away the people that participate fully in the electoral process from it also. We can't again take away the political actors, the politicians. We can't take away political parties. And that's where I will be asking the first question to you, Alakwe. You are a custodian of the law, and we have seen the development of election cases in March 18 governorship race that transpired in 2023, and a whole lot that also panned out in litigation cases. Unfortunately or fortunately, we have reports where it has been shown that 3 governors have been sacked. We have that of Plateau, we have that of Zamfara, and of course that of Kano. What is your thoughts about this in terms of the development that has transpired in the court?
Yeah, as far as I am concerned, the election petition tribunals, the appellate courts, and the politicians, political parties, the judiciary, the umpire, electoral umpire, INEC, all have roles to play as far as the issue of election petition is concerned. So we have several problems in this country regarding elections. But most times we try to heap all the blame on the judiciary. The judiciary on their own has always played their role, as far as I'm concerned. But the situation whereby you have of ambitious politicians, of ambitious political class, of ambitious bourgeoisie class who are in charge of the government, it becomes a little difficult to manage them. Because the laws are there, as per that Electoral Act. But most of the times, you will see that some of these laws are being pushed by the political class to the extent that we see lacunas created here and there. As a matter of fact, the appellate courts have done their job, you know, by sacking those they feel they don't win the election. But we also have to look at the circumstances that is surrounding such a judgment as to whether there was undue influence from any particular group or people in such a pronouncement made by the court.
Yeah.
However, if you look at the like Kano State case, wherein the appellate court was saying that 165,000 votes, couldn't count. It was declared invalid because they were not stamped by INEC. Then you keep asking yourself whether can the negligence of the umpire, INEC, be meted on the electorate?
Exactly.
At the situation whereby 165,000 votes are removed from an election.
Ballot.
So how many people now voted for the incumbent governor? And so such a lacuna shouldn't be a valid ground for disallowing a winner, because the INEC ought to be held liable. If INEC has failed to do their duty, for instance, how does that affect the outcome of that result? And so there have also been cases before now where Supreme Court has made pronouncements that such negligence of INEC is not strong enough to invalidate an election.
Okay.
And again, in some of the pronouncement that was made by the court as well, the most things that happened was pre-election matters that was inconclusive before the main election itself. And so, and then it was wrong for INEC to have conducted election in those states where there were pre-election matters, bordering on the candidates that was going to run for that election. And so what played in those courts was that the court said that such pre-election matters was not concluded before the election.
Yeah.
And when it was concluded, probably was no longer in favor of the candidate that won the election.
Yeah.
And on that ground, such was also, so those governors were asked to go. However, the INEC themselves, the issue of pre-election matters ought to have ended before the main election is conducted. And because if you allow it to spill over, then you will have the problem like what transpired in 2007 in Anambra State, where P2B was the governor of Anambra State. And then there was a matter in court between Obi and Oba, and then INEC went ahead to conduct the election. In that case, the Supreme Court said that the tenure of a governor commences the day he was sworn in.
Okay. And
Oba was asked to leave, and Obi was returned back.
Okay.
And in all this, the nation is, losing money, a whole lot of money.
Okay.
And because by the time so much is spent on election matters, and after that much has been spent, and because of the negligence of either the judiciary or either INEC, the umpire, or either the political actors, such revenue goes underground. So who loses? Okay. The people.
Well, you still have the floor. You just brought about the issue about pre-election or post-election matters.
Yes.
And my mind went through to the governor of Plateau State that was just sacked in the person of Caleb Motwang. It was according to what the appellate court said, based on not being properly sponsored by the political party, and based on the congresses that produced him as the candidate of the party, were not properly constituted. But again, this aspect was seen as a pre-election matter, and the court said, well, as long as qualification is in the issue of litigation, qualification takes preeminence, as in terms of the court can always look into issue of qualification, whether it's pre-election or post-election matters. And that seemed to bring about a whole lot of difference, because if you say that qualification can also, be looked into whether pre or post-election, then in other cases where we have even the presidential case, for instance, that seems to be different. So how do the judiciary determine which should be seen as pre-election or post-election matters, or which that can be seen as substantive in terms of both cases?
Yes, in the case of Plateau State, that is the position of the appellate court in Plateau State, that ordinarily the issue of qualification takes eminence in the issue of election qualification of a candidate, because ab initio a candidate must qualify for an election before running for that election. And so if that is the position of the law, then whether it's post or pre, it means that that candidate, one of the prerequisites for that election was that it must be qualified for that election. Again, like I said again,
are there no number of days at which such a case should be heard, if it's a pre-election matter? Are there no number of days at which such a case should be heard, after which it will not be allowed to, it will not be entertained in the court, like the issue of the qualification saga of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the President of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That was brought about by the PDP and its candidate Atiku Abubakar. They also brought about issues where after some number of days that elapsed, they were not allowed to tender the California University document of the president. Now, how do you compare the Chicago University? Thank you. How do you compare, juxtapose between that case and that of the Plateau State governor's case?
Yeah, the two cases are different. You know, because the Plateau State governors, you know, still have an opportunity of exploring the Supreme Court. You know, the matter does not end at the appellate court. So he still have opportunity of going to the Supreme Court. So whatever the Supreme Court says at the end of the day remains the final pronouncement. Okay. So as it is right now, it will be very premature to conclude that whatever the appellate court said in the Plateau's case is final. With all due respect to the appellate court, they have made their own pronouncements, and it's left for the governor to approach the Supreme Court. And whatever the Supreme Court says, it then remains final. However, in the case of Bola Tinubu, you know, the Supreme Court says that ordinarily that the PDP had about 180 days to have submitted that document. And of course, that the Supreme Court is not a court of evidence, and that the Supreme Court is, you know, an appellate court, wherein they will now look at what has transpired at the lower court, okay, and conclude as to whether what has transpired at the lower court, you know, whether it is what in tandem, yes, in tandem with the position of the law, and before they can make pronouncement. Okay. And so, if they're not saying that at that point, that the PDP had all the time to have tendered that particular document, which they did not, and the time allowed by the law having expired, they can no longer bring it in, and so that was exactly what transpired in that case, and they now made a pronouncement in favor of the incumbent president. Okay. Okay,
I'll come back to you because issues concerning the law courts as regards the election cases is quite burning, and a lot of gray areas that need to be brought to light in that respect. But well, let's get to your position as a political scientist. Now, we see democracy as the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. With the recent development where the court upturns the victory, being won by some party candidates as a result of the votes cast by the electorate, does it show that we seem not to be in tandem with that definition anymore about democracy? Do you see the people still counting in terms of this recent development?
Thank you for your question, and thank you for the topic. The topic upon which you invited me here is deepening electoral integrity, the role of the judiciary. It goes to show that the judiciary has a role, an irreducible role to play in deepening democracy. But the first question is, what is the concept that attracts in this topic? Electoral integrity and deepening. We need to unravel them.
Of course, yes.
Number one, to deepen is to make a phenomenon to be deeper in terms of its successes. Then integrity connotes transparent honesty and display of the quality of morality. Then we now talk about the electoral. Everything that have to do with the electoral process. So if you marry this concept together, wow, we are talking about deeply, transparently, being transparently honest about the electoral process in Nigeria.
Wow. That's a whole lot.
Yes. Then from there, we now go back to the law that governs the electoral process. We have three major organs of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. These three, they have irreducible role to play in the electoral process. How? The legislature, we promulgate or pass into law the Constitution and the Electoral Act. The executive will execute the provisions of the Electoral Act and the Constitution. And then the judiciary will now interpret.
Of course, this is where the cases are.
Everything that is wrong with the electoral process, the judiciary is now bearing the burden of interpreting the errors in the process of the electoral process. Okay. So when you hear some people, some politicians, some commentators, they say that the judiciary is corrupt. They have passed judgment in favor of this because of either power of incumbency, or they have passed judgment in favor of this because because of the powers of the central government. The question is, the judgment that were passed by the judiciary, were they in line with the provisions of the Constitution? In this case, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, and the Electoral Act, 2010, as amended in 2022. This should be the first question. Now, we, by way of just try to summarize the issue of governors being sacked, I thank God that my co-discussant is a lawyer, not just a lawyer, a constitutional lawyer. When we talk about validity and valid votes, they are derived from the Constitution and the Electoral Act. And these two documents did not keep anyone in doubt about what is the meaning of valid vote and invalid votes. Now, that is why when election results are to be announced by either resident electoral commissioner, the returning officer, they always say that having considered this election, based on the valid votes, total number of valid vote cast, this person is now declared the winner and returned elected.
Yeah.
It goes to show that in the process of an election, there are valid votes and invalid votes.
As declared by the electoral umpire?
Yes, as contained in the provisions of the electoral law.
Okay.
Now, if, according to the provision of the Electoral Act, I cannot remember the exact section, or whether it's section 134 or section 34.
For it.
Now, it says that a result of an election, that is a ballot paper, should be stamped, signed, and dated for the result to be valid. And the makers and the drafters of the Electoral Act, they also have the intention of trying to nip in the bud attempt by people or by actors to rig election. They make provision for every political party in all the processes to provide their agents.
Okay, but who stamps the ballot?
I'm coming.
Who stamps it?
Yeah, I'm coming.
Is it the voters that stamps it?
No, it's not the voters that stamp it.
So should the voters now bear the brunt?
No, forget about whether the voters should bear the brunt. The agents are there. The agents of all the political parties are there. Then INEC is the one, the body that conducts the election, is the body that stamps the voters, the ballot paper, date it. Now, the agents are there. If the ballot papers of a political party, in this case, the ballot papers of NNPP in Kano State, 165,000 plus, were not stamped, where were the agents? You know, the polling unit where this result came from, because the result will not have come from one unit. Where were the agents? When these ballot papers were being given to the voters to go and cast their vote, were they sleeping to know that the ballot paper that be given to their members to go and cast their vote were not stamped?
Can that not be passed in error or oversight?
No. The position of the law.
Okay, but I expect you to also look at how you can excuse the electoral officials that committed this error.
No, we are not talking about, when you are talking about punishing the perpetrators of such act, whether it was an omission on their part, whether it was deliberate on their part. It is, you know, in court, because it did not come to court to say, if we discover that there are invalid votes and it is as a result of the fact that they were not stamped, then the court will invoke its criminal power to punish the perpetrators. If we did not say it, the court cannot say, oh, INEC that was supposed to stamp, sign, and date this ballot paper, because it failed to do so, the INEC officials that conducted this election in this area should be punished. The court cannot say so, because the court is not a Father Christmas. It is what you demand from court that the court will give you. So, saying that the voters will now be punished because of the negligence of somebody, it is the position of the law. The tribunal and the appellate court, which is the court of appeal, and the apex court, their duty is to interpret the law, is to interpret the Constitution and interpret the Electoral Act. If the Electoral Act is put before them, and because of course, as justices, they are supposed to take judicial notice of it, that according to section so, a valid vote is so. They cannot say otherwise, that because it is not negligence of duty of INEC officials, we are going to now change the position of the law by saying that this vote will still be admitted because it was the failure of INEC official to stamp, date, and sign them.
Okay.
That is not the law. The law is a vote that is not stamped, signed, and dated is an invalid vote.
Just as you brought about the law, you still have the floor. Just as you brought about the law, and while we are on the pages of the newspaper, where the former president, Olusegun Ambassador, spoke concerning Western democracy, you know, and looking at the need for Africa to close the gap and the challenges that Africa has. He stated clearly that Africa should look into having an Afro democracy and not Western, because we seem not to be able to, you know, mimic closely the way it is being done. Now, if we take a look at the electoral umpire, for instance, what do you say would be your thoughts about the misgivings of the electoral umpire as regards the flaws we are having in our electoral process?
You see, Nigeria is a country of impunity, and so many people, especially around the executive.
You can't say Nigeria is a country. You can't say that. Well, it's your opinion, though. But just go straight to the point and be objective.
You know that this is a live television program, and the whole world is watching. If I start giving you examples of shared display of impunity, you will still be the one, you, Philip Omo, you will still be the one to stop me, to say stop mentioning names of institutions and persons.
The very fact that there are errors that we still see in our policy doesn't give room for us to generalize. So I only cut in there because you were generalizing, which wouldn't augur well for the purpose of this discussion. But just be objective.
Okay, a senior colleague of mine and a person I see as a mentor, Professor Igbinovia of Sociology Department. He's an expert in criminology. He presented his inaugural lecture in, I think, 2005, where he talked about the criminal in all of us, whose ox have we not taken. That's the title of the inaugural lecture.
Okay.
In that paper, he identified various sectors of Nigeria's life and the criminality and the corruption in these places. This is a document that you can get from Unibet Bookshop. If you need a copy, I can get a copy for you. And there, you will see the impunity that we are talking about. And after that, we have seen various displays of impunity.
Okay,
I'll give you an instance.
Drive a point home.
In the case of Plateau State, where the appellate court has set the governor packing, even though the governor is still having the option of going to the apex court.
Of course, yes.
The decision of the 3 justices of the Court of Appeal is that the political party, and by extension, many political parties, they are fond of acting with impunity. That's the language.
By disobeying court orders.
Yes. Number one, they made reference to a court order of one Honorable Justice SP Gang of the Jos High Court, a Plateau State High Court sitting in Jos, where the judge, in his reasoning, called for fresh congresses in the 17 local government areas of Plateau State under PDP. The PDP, in an attempt to obey the order in quote, conducted congresses in 5 local governments, leaving out 12. In the eyes of the law, they did not obey that court order. And so, selectively obeying the court order is a nullity. That is to say, you did not obey the court order.
Irrespective of the fact that majority of voters voted in the candidate of the party.
Yes. This is because a subsisting order of court that was not set aside by a superior court, and you choose not to obey, even if your candidate has won that election, the winning of that candidate is a nullity.
Okay.
This is the position. And that is a shared display of impunity. on the part of the party. Now, let's go to Kano State. In the case of NNPP and APC. In the case of Kano State, it is the governor that even took the appeal, and the justices in that appeal came to a unanimous decision that it was impunity on the part of NNPP to have featured a candidate whose name was not found on the register of the political party, both the hard copy of the register that was tendered before court and the soft copy of the register that was tendered before court. So for a party to now feature a candidate that his name is not on the register, it's a gross violation of section 177 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999. Is that one again not impunity on the side of NNPP and a gross violation of the law? So if the judiciary tries to interpret the law
in his wisdom,
yes, and based on his constitutional powers, and right the wrongs of the past, whether the wrong is a pre-election matter or the wrong is during election matter.
Okay.
People, including, with due respect, Mr. Femi Falana, should not cast aspersion. They should look at the position of the law and the interpretation that the justices have done.
Okay.
If people want to now call for an amendment of the Constitution to say a vote that is supposed to be invalid, not signed, not stamped, not dated, should not be a valid vote.
Okay,
they should put that one before
I think the constitutional
election.
lawyer has said it all, that, well, it's still been in litigation in court.
Yes, it's a litigation in court, but
the apex court in its wisdom,
yes,
will rule over that. No. And at the end of the day, we will now have an issue where we can no longer.
No, the court
beyond that, because once the apex court has ruled, it's final. So
with due respect, in as much as we cannot preempt the court, there was a time you invited me here on the issue of the Supreme Court that was waiting to deliver judgment in the presidential election matter concerning Tinubu, PDP, Obi, and Atiku. And I remember that I made a statement, and that statement became part of the judgment that was delivered by the honorable justices of the Supreme Court. What was the statement? You cannot, as a candidate in an election, and with a court, the Court of Appeal with limited jurisdiction, because it is election matter, it is not a normal case that is coming from the lower court, high court, and so on. When you take an appeal, you take an appeal on the basis of the miscarriage of justice of the lower court, in this case of the Court of Appeal that was the initial court of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. A matter that you did not raise there, a document that you did not foreclose there, and you did not tender in court there, and that the justices of the Court of Appeal did not carry miscarriage of justice against you. You cannot swear moto bring such a document before court to say this document, if it is admitted, it can go and disqualify somebody. Okay. That you did not tender such document to even disqualify. Okay. Why not that you have applied for the document and the court document was not brought? If the document was not brought, the Supreme Court can say because the document was not brought, it cannot be accepted.
Okay, let's see your.
So these are the issues, and the position of the law is very, very clear.
All right, let's see your reactions to what he said, Mbane Alakwe, and most especially as we also look at the need to clarify issues concerning, the electoral process, concerning, issues concerning the electoral umpire, where they are supposed to be positioned to do justice, to do the needful, in terms of having their acts properly put together in order to bring about a healthy, transparent poll that will be seen as celebrated by the electorate. Now, what do you see in terms of the political parties, for instance, where they happen to have disobeyed court orders concerning not properly constituting their congresses that produced the gubernatorial candidate? And again, we are also bringing this up from issues concerning disunity that may be perceived among political parties, most especially as we also look at issues in the PDP, even in the state. Now, what do you see as a pointer to the need for us to bring about a healthy internal democracy in our political parties?
Yeah, the matter is very clear. For instance, let me chip in this. You know, like my friend was just saying just now about Kano State case and all that. If INEC, in their wisdom, has been caught on negligence, and then we should be talking about electoral offenses. Electoral offenses.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, it's incumbent on National Assembly to look at that aspect very, very well. If, you know, an institution like INEC has allowed themselves to be compromised to the extent that they ought to have stamped, you know,
the ballot papers.
Ballot papers, and they now failed to stamp ballot papers. If it's established that it is their own negligence, then electoral offenses the laws on electoral offenses supposed to take care of that, so that such staff or, you know, officers who committed such a crime should be identified,
yes,
and tried, and if possible convicted, so that subsequent elections, such mistakes can longer be made.
And so that the electorate will not bear the brunt of the negligence of the
umpire.
Officials.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like for instance, in the US right now, Donald Trump is facing a trial, and the whole thing is anchored on what transpired during the last election. The government is saying that he used his power as a president of the country to influence that election, to stop certain things from happening in certain states.
Okay.
As we're talking right now, those trials are ongoing. And so in Nigeria here, the problem we are having here is that most times, after election, you can hardly see people being tried for one electoral offense or the other. For instance, if we're talking about impunity right now, in the last election that we held in Imo State, Kogi, and Bayelsa State, so many things happened. But at the end of the day, I just want to see that those people involved in some of these, you know, electoral offenses should be put to trial. And so at the end of the day, in the future, such mistakes can be avoided. Then back to your question.
Yeah.
What you were saying that...
as regards the electoral umpire, you did justice to that. But concerning the political parties, they need to constitute their house in order.
Yes.
Because we are having some ripple effects, you know, that may also lead towards a degeneration, if not tackled, even in the...
Yes, I agree with you. The issue of political parties not obeying court orders is part of the problem we are having right now. A pre-election matters ought to end before the main election is held. A situation where a court has made a pronouncement of certain issue in pre-election matters, and the INEC still go ahead to conduct election in that same state. INEC should be held liable, along with the political party that disobeyed that court order. Because if we don't, you know, apply the law here by holding institutions, you know, responsible for their negligent actions, that means we cannot move forward. And so if this country wants to move forward, then we should take laws serious. For instance, the judiciary is bearing a whole lot of burden right now. But how do you expect a judge who was never an INEC official, a judge who was never a member of PDP or APC, a judge who was never there when election was conducted in the state, to know everything that transpired in that election? It's not possible. It's impossible.
Okay.
So if you ask me, the judiciary are doing their best as far as the issue of these election petitions are concerned. The problem we are having is that there is no internal democracy in Nigeria within the political parties. For instance, the governor of every state in Nigeria sees himself as a leader of that party. And when you now see yourself as a leader in that party, like what my friend was saying before now, and the candidate's name was not in the register of the party, both hard copies and soft copies, and the candidate was featured for election, because one big man has said that is my candidate. And so if he does say that is my candidate, it therefore means that the powers now fell on his laps to choose any candidate of his choice to run. Ordinarily, it's not have been the other way around. It is the political party with internal democracy that's supposed to say, this is our candidate. Like you said, through the congresses and everything, the primaries, the person will now emerge.
Okay.
It now becomes the business of the party. A situation whereby you allow these powers to fall on some political godfathers, then those godfathers will now produce the candidate. At the end of the day, if judiciary has made pronouncement on that, you will say judiciary is corrupt. Judiciary is never corrupt.
Okay.
And so, if we want to achieve a democracy, like you were saying about the Obasanjo, we're talking about Afro democracy in Africa. You know, the political parties must appreciate the need for internal democracy, and not one godfather trying to impose any particular person on the party. At the end of the day, the outcome is what now is the reports we're not getting for the pronouncement of this.
Do you see the people losing grip as a result of the cases being the announcement of the court in terms of their votes not counting in the sacking of some governors that has been announced by the appellate court? Do you see the people not counting in that regard? Because we always say that democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But a situation where a majority, you know, is being subjected to the otherwise because of inability of constituting an adequate Congress. Don't you see democracy being threatened in that regard?
No, democracy is not threatened at all, because the fact is that the courts have just done their job. And, you know, for you to be a good citizen of a country, you must have respect for the law. You must have respect for the judiciary. And so, if an appellate court has made a pronouncement, like I said, it becomes too premature for you to conclude that what they have said is final.
Okay, yes,
so,
of course.
Since we have an opportunity of ventilating the Supreme Court, allow the candidates or the governors to ventilate that opportunity of the Supreme Court. And it's only when the Supreme Court has made a pronouncement that you will now say, well, this is the position of the law.
Okay. Now, let's get to you, Neville Obakedo. We have had issues where, you know, democracy is seen as losing its value, you know, in Nigeria, basically in Africa, but particularly in Nigeria. Let's look at how we can build this. You may mention of the organs of government, for instance, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. What do you see as a clog in the wheel of progress among these organs that seem to impede democracy?
You first of all asked me a question about what former President Olusegun Obasanjo was suggesting for Nigeria, Afro democracy.
Yeah.
I don't know what he meant by Afro democracy. If you say Afro democracy, is it a democracy that is not based on law, not based on rules and regulations, not based on procedure?
Maybe looking at our traditional values, maybe looking at the primordial sentiments, bringing it into our system of governance, because we look at the civic system, for instance, the borrowed system of government, the white man's government that we tend to mimic. We seem not to be helping out.
It's not the borrowed democratic style that is the problem. It is the respect for the rules that governs the process.
By the actors.
Yes, that is the problem. I am surprised that it is the likes of, or let me say I'm not surprised that Obasanjo is talking about Afro-democracy. Because shortly before he left office, the last election that he conducted before he left office in 2007, he made a national broadcast to the nation where he was talking about the irregularities that were perpetrated in that election. He acknowledged the irregularities that were perpetrated. He acknowledged the violence, the ballot snatching, the ballot stuffing, and the rest of them. And in that broadcast, he made a statement, even though I saw that statement as an insult to Christianity. He said that if Jesus Christ were to come to Nigeria to come and conduct election, the election will not still be free and fair because of the mind and attitude of Nigerians, or because of the prevailing culture or the prevailing democratic culture. So talking about suggesting Afro-democracy, is it the type...
What you just said now
yes.
also pinpoints what you said, that It's the actors that play it the way it's being read.
Yes.
Or
So
that gives a misconception
if you
what it should really represent.
Yes.
So that is not far from what the former president said.
Yes, if you say
that even if it takes Christ to come down, it will still remain the same.
No.
Because the political actors are still the same.
And he's a political actor. He's a major, during that period, he was a major political actor. What happened in Anambra State that brought to Gigel, that later brought to be, he was part of it.
Okay, but if you look
what
at
happened in Edo State
that brought you still have the floor. Let's just project this so that you can discuss better in this respect. If you look at the shenanigans that is still happening, the political parties, you know, the rifts within the parties, you know, and the challenges that finally is thrown at the electorate, whereby the court will now rule, you know, in favor of their other counterparts. You know, does it not show that political actors are not playing according to the rule as expected? And again, irrespective of the fact that they are even from the ruling party, how can we correct this?
In the first instance, whether we have Afro-democracy or we have America type of democracy or the European type of democracy, there is no democracy that we have that will not be based on rules and procedures. If you say, let's have democracy that is based on primordial sentiments, are we now going to operate that kind of democracy in a state of nature, which Thomas Hobbes says is narrow, is short, is solitary,
and brutish.
Your
basic pattern of life.
Is that the type of democracy that will now be operational under Afro-democracy? Is it going to be the type of democracy that is operating in Rwanda, where Paul Kagame does not allow dissent opinion about the leadership of his country? Is it the type of democracy that is operating in Uganda under Yoweri Kaguta Museveni that Obasanjo is proposing to be Afro-democracy in Nigeria? Or the type of democracy that is operational in Zimbabwe? Or the type of democracy that was operational in Central African Republic
Yes, you can go on and on, but don't you see that this deficiency that we have in the Nigerian democracy is bringing us to overburden the judiciary? Because we are having litigation of cases, litigation in court. It's just because of these issues where, you know, actors are not playing the way it should be. Even the electoral umpire was also cited in this. Now, don't you see the judiciary has been overburdened? And how do you expect the judiciary, you know, to bring a balance to all of this, looking at the burden that is before it?
I agree with you that the judiciary is overburdened. Why is the judiciary overburdened? It is because of the fact that political actors, members of the political class that operate or run political parties, they are not ready to play according to the rules. So their failure to play according to the rules, we now have to go to the judiciary that is having the constitutional responsibility to interpret the actions and inactions of persons and political parties in line with the extant law. For instance, we have APC, we have PDP, we have Labour Party, we have NP, we have other political parties. It is expected, their constitutions of these political parties are very clear on how to throw up congresses, how to throw up their candidates for election. Now, more often than not, these political parties do not obey their own constitution. And any member of any of these political parties who feels shortchanged, we now have to approach the court.
Exactly.
Because it is the court.
At the end of the day, all the cases go to the court
that we now interpret their actions, whether their actions were in line, number one, with their own constitution, number two, with the Electoral Act, and number three, the constitution. Now, almost all political parties in almost all the states of the federation are having this problem.
Challenge, yes.
And so it is the judiciary that they go to.
Okay, let's go to the judiciary.
I agree with you that the judiciary is overburdened, but the judiciary is actually performing its constitutional responsibility.
Okay, let's go to the judiciary. We don't know what body that can assist the judiciary, in terms of all of this, because the task before it is enormous. A lot of experts have said that litigation cases should end before inauguration. While we look at the president-elect, and the need to litigate, in order to bring about the judgment of the court and even the apex. Do you see relevance in what these experts have said?
Yes, yes.
A lot needs to be done before inauguration in order not to affect or influence it negatively.
Let me say this, I'm happy with the way we are reasoning this morning. Because long before now, everybody is saying, pulling the whole blame on the judiciary. We're doing our best.
Yeah.
So, the truth of the matter is what my friend I just said, Oganeville. Okay. The political class, because of too much impunity, has refused.
That go unchecked.
That go unchecked. They have refused, neglected, and failed to obey the rules of the game. And so, that is creating a huge burden on the judiciary. The judiciary will have a lesser job to do where there is a free, fair,
of course,
and credible.
There may not be cases in court.
Election. I agree with you.
Or minimal.
Yeah, minimal cases. And so, where there is a free, fair, and credible election, the judiciary will have a minimal job to do.
Maybe it takes perfect humans to have that kind of.
Unfortunately, sir, the federal government of Nigeria and the political class are not doing enough to take advantage of technology. We just tried it in the last election, where beavers and IRF was used. And at the end of the day, the outcome of those IRF and beavers.
Okay, you're talking about the transmission of results electronically.
Yes.
Which the provision of the law does not support.
Who told you that?
No, because it's becoming illegal to transmit election results electronically. Because that was what the ruling said.
No, the Supreme Court did not say so, that it's legal. They might make it an illegal.
But it doesn't make it relevant in the elections for now in Nigeria. Election results cannot be transmitted electronically.
It's relevant.
But manually. So how do we benefit from the electronic transmission of results after that ruling?
The whole thing falls back to National Assembly. The problem we have with the electronic transfer of results was lacuna in the law.
Oh.
So what the Supreme Court said was that the INEC, being an umpire, has a choice either to make the pronouncement based on what came out electronically or what came out manually.
Okay, that's not cast in stone for you to transmit electronically.
Yes. And so the onus now lies in the National Assembly to look at that part of the Electoral Act, look at the word themselves, and take advantage of technology by amending that particular section to say that all elections in Nigeria must be done electronically.
But again, don't you see that it could be a deliberate act by some political actors not to take advantage of that electronic gadgets, because it brings a whole lot of transparency. And if some have ulterior motive, that would be a challenge in pulling out.
Yeah, it took a whole lot of time for the immediate past president to sign that particular,
bill into law.
You saw the time it took them to go to the presidency. Yeah. The man will throw it back to them again. As they go back again, he throws it back at them. It appears at the end of the day that these issues were created. And again, nobody actually knows what happened between National Assembly to the presidency. And it is left for Nigerians. It's left for Nigerians to take advantage of what is happening in developing countries. No country can survive now without the aid of technology. And so it is incumbent on National Assembly right now to look at that particular section of of the Electoral Act.
Exactly what the minds of Nigerians were then, because when it was signed into law, it was the minds of most Nigerians that, well, electronic transmission of results has come to stay. But
yes, that was
but in the course of the electoral process,
yes,
and litigations, we began to see that it was not even codified in the provisions of the law that is casting stone for the electoral umpire to transmit results electronically.
Yes,
so that came on board as a result of the judiciary, settling disputes and bringing it to our purview on what the law strictly says in that regard. And you're just saying now that, well, a whole lot needs to be done, a whole lot of refurbishment needs to be done by the National Assembly. Are you looking at an amendment of the Act?
Yes, yes. The National Assembly has no choice than to amend that section of the Electoral Act to ensure that there is no lacuna again, to make it...
Casting stone?
Yes, that place should be amended to
capture in that regard. Is that what you mean?
No, the National Assembly should make that law. Removing that lacuna there, that all future elections
should be
conducted electronically,
with results transmitted electronically.
Yes.
But again, do you see the country as right for it in terms of the network providers we have? There are dark spots, believe me, in Nigeria that may not see the light of the day when it comes to data collection. Don't you think that could be a setback?
Let's capture the areas. Let us capture the areas that can be captured, and of course the laws can take care of the areas that can be captured. Like you are talking about very rural areas that maybe where there is no facility to capture all those stuff.
Okay, so do you mean that there may be a proviso to that?
Yes, we still have solar powers that can take care of all those areas. And so, because the only way this country can move forward is through a deepening, democracy, through a process that is transparent, through a process that is verifiable. Without through electoral process, we're just wasting our time.
Thank you. Well, our big brother judiciary can't do it all alone. Looking at the role of the judiciary in deepening electoral integrity, do you concur with what is said that the electronic transmission of results it should be sacrosanct in terms of the future amendments as per the Electoral Act?
Well, talking about transmission of results, my take is usually the position of the law, the established position of the law. And I've argued with people elsewhere that the major document in an election is the Form EC8A. The other day I was hearing people talking about a particular state, South Nigeria, where agents went to the state electoral umpire's office. They were giving election materials and they were not giving result sheets. They saw that there was distribution of election materials, but there was no distribution of result sheets. They did not cry foul. Until election day, they were saying where they voted, there was no result sheet. At the point of distribution, the agents of each of the political parties were there to see the material that will be distributed. Is it that they sold out? That's a fundamental question. Then we now go to the Form EC8A. Results that will be transmitted electronically will not be results that are emanating from the cyberspace. They are results of a political of a unit.
Yes.
And that is why I have always said that election is local. And because election is local, if the governor of a state, for instance, Edo State, is from Kukuruku Hills, on election day, he leaves government house and goes to Kukuruku Hills, to his polling unit, to go and vote there. And then the vote will be counted. The vote will be written. All the agents of the political parties, including so, will be there. Police will be there. They will sign it. It is that same result that have been signed that should be transmitted electronically.
Okay, and basically, at the end of the day, it will tally with the
yes. So if they are talking about amendment of the Electoral Act to cover the lacuna that have been discovered, that amendment should state that the result that is transmitted electronically should tally with the result that emanated from the polling unit.
Basically, that's how it should be.
Yeah, because if you say the result should be transmitted electronically, without that proviso that result must tally with the result from EC8A, you will now have conflict of whether the court will now rely on result that be transmitted electronically, even if there's error in it, or whether result that emanated from the polling unit based on the content of from EC8A.
A whole lot needs to be brought to.
There must be
a whole lot needs to be tackled.
Yeah, the quest for electronic transmission of result should be anchored on what transpired at the polling unit, because again, election is local, and the intent of the drafters of the Electoral Act is for the result to reflect the result of a polling unit, to reflect the wishes and aspirations of the people in that polling unit.
Thank you. In case you're just watching, well, we will be telling the discussion to an end in a few minutes, and I've been discussing with a very seasoned legal practitioner, a constitutional lawyer, human rights activist in the person of Alakwe Mbanefo, and also with a political scientist, a social media influencer, Neville Obakedo, who is a lecturer at University of Benin, Political Science Department. And we are on electoral integrity with the aspect of deepening it and the role of the judiciary. And in the course of it, we've seen that, well, a whole lot lies in the judiciary, but the judiciary alone can't handle this. But let's, as we wrap up, Alakwe, let's look at what is transpiring what transpired rather in Zamfara State, where the sitting governor, was by virtue of the ruling of the court, is now made to go back to the polling booth, where 3 local government areas, we are saying as inconclusive. The elections were inconclusive after 8 months of the election that took place in March 18. What do you see that? How do you see that affecting governance in Zamfara State?
Well, it's some of the shortcomings, from still the umpire, INEC.
Yes.
So ordinarily, you don't wait for 8 months to talk about inconclusive election in 3 local governments. Ordinarily, to ought to have been the duty of INEC to ensure that those areas, if they were inconclusive, was done immediately. Election was done, and so maybe the cost of the trial, the tribunal discovered that the court discovered that that area probably wasn't conclusive, and in their wisdom, and a pronouncement was made that that area should be. Okay,
but you see that as what could also be discussed to the point of even the apex court.
Yes,
in terms of the litigation getting to the apex.
If it affects the office of the governor.
Yes.
At that stage, he can still approach the apex court to look at their pronouncements. But if it cannot, and then it's a matter of conducting the election there and knowing what the outcome is, and then you now look at what is actually the result they were earlier having, as to whether it can also sustain him as the governor of the state. Okay.
Well, what's your reaction in that, Neville Obakedo, as we call it around?
My reaction to that issue of Zamfara State is the same reaction that I've been having towards other areas like Plateau State, like Kano State, even like Nasarawa State, where the governor was also set parking. Now, we talk about Zamfara State. What's the position of the law about inconclusive election?
Exactly.
The Electoral Act says that where the margin, the number of votes that were cancelled in an election, where they are more than the margin of win between the person that is declared the winner and the runners up in an election, the election should be declared inconclusive. Now, in the case of Zamfara State, we have about 3 local governments that elections were not conducted or the votes were cancelled. And if you put this vote together, they are more than the margin of win for the incumbent governor over the APC counterpart, which that was Bello Matawali was the
So it makes the ruling sensible?
Yes, it makes the ruling sensible because even if you take the matter to the Supreme Court will still have to look at whether the appellate court justices, whether they perpetrated injustice, by that their conclusion. If the conclusion is in line with the Electoral Act that says that the margin of win is lesser than the total number of votes that were cancelled, the Supreme Court will align themselves, the justices of the Supreme Court will align themselves with the reasoning of the appellate court. Otherwise, the governor will be allowed to remain if they did not see it that way.
Okay.
So that is that. But the bottom line of what we have tried to discuss here is that the judiciary that has been burdened, because any person that is looking for a solution to any irregularity in an election goes to the temple of justice, which is the judiciary. And the judiciary is not an island.
The judiciary is saying as the hope of the last hope of the common man.
In complementary capacity with the executive and the legislature. And in this case, all other stakeholders, the political class that run the political party, traditional institutions, security men, and even the electorate, they have a role to play in lessening the body of the judiciary and in helping to deepen democracy.
Okay.
Deepening democracy should not be left.
Okay,
left
I'll come back to you to take your final lap on this segment. But let's ask you as a custodian of the law, do we have the judiciary as an independent organ of government? Because that's a mind-boggling question.
Yeah, that is
that goes a whole long way to show. That goes a whole long way to show if really is the last hope of the common man.
Judiciary, you know, is the last hope of the common man, because at the end of the day, no matter, just like my friend just said, no matter what happens, that's the only way you can go.
But is it independent? Truly independent?
Judiciary, by what he said now about 3 arms of government, judiciary ought to be independent.
Oh, it's not truly independent as we speak.
Well, it depends on what the aspect of independence you are looking at.
In its entirety, so that we don't have any executive influence or rub-off on the judiciary's judgment.
Well, judiciary is independent, but like we have tried to x-ray the Nigerian situation right now regarding the electoral process in Nigeria, you know, there is need for all litigations involving political parties to end before inauguration of any governor or any president.
Okay.
You can't solve a problem without cannot solve a problem without getting the cause of that problem.
Okay.
And so all election matters supposed to end.
Yeah, before
inauguration. So with that governor.
Okay. By that,
are
you suggesting that if it doesn't end, there may be some influence on the judiciary?
Yes, if it doesn't end at that level and somebody is sworn in as an executive, and with all the executive powers.
So by your submission, it means that the judiciary is not truly independent. Because even if inauguration pops up, it should be seen as delivering judgments based on neutrality.
Well, most cases, the executives has always overused their powers.
Oh.
And so the only way you can get the neutrality of the judiciary is still for us to fall back to the National Assembly.
Okay.
They still have to make, look at the laws and still amend the laws to say
okay, thank you.
that all election petition matters up to Supreme Court must end before inauguration.
Thank you very much.
If that can be captured,
okay,
the judiciary will be less burdened, and the issue of independence can be truly seen.
Okay, thank you very much, Alakwe. As they say in the law court, that I take that as your final submission. Okay, let's get your submission on this, Neville Obakedo.
My submission is that the judiciary is independent, and Nigeria should encourage the judiciary to deepen its independence. Ministers in the temple of justice should assist the judiciary to deepen its independence. And one critical aspect of judicial dependence or independence is the way people are appointed into judicial positions.
Oh yeah, I think we're going to be saying that on our next discussion. Big thanks, Neville Obakeno. Big thanks, Alakwe Mbane, for taking our time to be part of this. Well, just as they say, the big brother judiciary can't do it all alone. It needs the executive, of course, the executive that executes all of these laws being passed by the legislature. And it also needs the legislature to bring about amendment. That's all what has been said here by our distinguished personalities and analysts on this discussion. Well, so much has been said. Still hook up with us. Don't forget tomorrow is another time on TMI. But coming shortly is Business Rendezvous with Lawrence Osifo. I am Philip Omo Gupon, and I'm saying bye for now.